Hello everyone. In this lesson we're going to install the MySQL database system onto our Macs. So if you're using Windows, you can safely skip ahead to the next video. But if you're using a Mac, let's go ahead and get MySQL installed. So the first step is to visit the official website. So if you Google for MySQL, it should be the first non-sponsored, real result. It's mysql.com. And then from this page, I want you to click on Downloads up in the top navigation bar here. From this screen, I want you to scroll down a bit, and it's actually at the bottom of this main column. We're looking for this link. So this one specifically, it reads MySQL Community GPL Downloads. Go ahead and click on that. Okay, now from this screen, we're interested in two different programs. So first of all, we want this one, MySQL Community Server. And then we're also going to want, number two, this one, MySQL Workbench. So let's do it one by one. Let's start with this one, the MySQL Community Server. I'll click on that. From this screen, yes, this looks good. My operating system is Mac OS. I'm just going to click Download. Well, first of all, to be clear, if you bought your Mac in the last year or two and it's using Apple Silicon, an Apple M1 processor, you would want this version that says ARM. If your Mac is a bit older and it's using an Intel processor, you would want this version, the x86 64-bit version. If you're not sure which chip your Mac is using, you can click the Apple logo in the very top left corner of your Mac and choose About This Mac. It should be the very first option, and then from this screen you should see what type of chip you're using. If it says Intel, you would want this version, the x86. If it's using any type of Apple chip, you want this ARM version. But just go ahead and click the correct download button. Cool, now from this screen you want to scroll down to the bottom and just click this No Thanks, Just Start My Download link. Awesome, now while that's downloading, it might take a minute, it's about 449 megabytes. Let's go back and download the Workbench program. So I'm just going to click the back button twice. Remember, from this screen, we also wanted MySQL Workbench. So let's click on that. Now, as of late September 2022, it doesn't look like MySQL is offering an ARM version of Workbench. So there's just the x86 for Intel. That's okay. Your Mac has something called Rosetta, which will automatically allow it to work. It just won't be as fast or as efficient or as ideal as possible, but that's absolutely okay. So we can just click Download. And then again, scroll down to the bottom and click No Thanks, Just Start My Download. Cool, so you can see I don't have the fastest internet connection right now. They're both still downloading. I'll come back and resume this video once I've finished both files. Okay, so my two downloads finished. Now just go into the Downloads folder on your Mac, and let's begin with the large file. So that was the first file we downloaded. It's the file that does not have the word Workbench in the file name. So just double click it, and then double click this package file. Go ahead and click Allow. Click Continue, Continue, Agree, Install, enter your password or your fingerprint. Let's use all of the default options. We don't need to customize any of this, so just click Next. In this text box here, you can make up a password. Now, don't worry, this is not going to be tied to any sort of cloud or online account. This is just on your local personal computer. So the password security is not very important in this context. I'm just going to make up a password of root. So just this word twice, right? Root. Then I'm going to click Finish. Again, go ahead and enter in your password or fingerprint. Awesome, we've installed MySQL Server onto our Mac. We can go ahead and click Close and then move to Trash. Now let me show you what that just did. Let's open up our system preferences on our Mac. So you can click the Apple logo in the very top left-hand corner and then click System Preferences. In the window that appears, notice that at the very bottom we have this brand new MySQL icon down here. And if you click on it, awesome. So the MySQL database server is now up and running in the background on our Mac. And it's going to start up every time you restart or power on your computer. So now we just need a way to connect to the database server so we can start creating databases, right? We want to set up a new empty canvas database for Laravel to connect to and use. Now, there are many different ways to connect to a MySQL database server. Later in this video, we're going to learn how to connect to it from the command line. But first, just to get started, that's the entire point of the Workbench program that we downloaded. It's a graphical user interface. It's just point and click, and it could not be any simpler. So right now, let's go ahead, go into your computer's downloads folder, and let's install that second program that we downloaded, right? The program that was called MySQL Workbench. So I'm just going to double click it. You can actually go ahead and close your system preferences. This was just to show you that the database server is up and running, but you can close that window. And then let's just double click the Workbench file in our downloads folder. Cool, so just go ahead and drag the MySQL Workbench icon onto your applications folder here. It should only take a few seconds. And it's that easy. So now you can eject that disk image right about here. Okay, and now you can just go into your applications folder. They should be in alphabetical order. So if you look for MySQL Workbench, you should now see it. Just go ahead and open it up, double click it. Give it permission to open. If you bought your Mac in the last year or two, it's probably using an Apple chip, meaning it can't run an x86 program natively. That's okay. The very first time you try to open an x86 program, your Mac will say, hey, this is not ideal, but we can install something called Rosetta. Do you want to install Rosetta right now? And when your Mac asks you something along those lines, just click yes, or allow, or accept. But just go ahead and let it install Rosetta, and then you will be able, just like you're seeing on my screen, this is an Apple Silicon laptop, I can open the Workbench program perfectly without any issue. Cool. Now from this welcome screen, when you open Workbench, down about here we see an example connection. Right? Local instance 3306. Now, if you click on that, it's going to ask for a password, and this is that local root password that we chose just a minute ago. So remember, I chose a value of root. You can click Save Password and Keychain so you don't have to type it in every time, and then click OK. From this screen, trust me, I realize this is not the pinnacle of user design. There's way too much going on. I wish the MySQL team would update the user interface of this program, but it is what it is. So here's what I want you to do. On this left-hand side of the screen, currently we have administration selected. That's selected by default, but I want you to click on schemas right about here. Cool. As soon as you click on schemas, this area opens up, and this is going to show us any of the databases that we have on our system. So right now, let's create our first database. In this empty area, I want you to right-click and choose Create Schema. So schema is just another word for database. Let's click Create Schema. And then in this area, we get to give it a name. Let's name it Our Laravel App. And then down here, just click Apply. From this screen, in the very bottom right-hand corner, you should see an Apply button. Just go ahead and click Apply. And then on this screen, you'll see a Close button. You can click Close. Cool. Now over here, we see Our Laravel App. That's our first database. Now just to let you know, you can install as many different databases on your computer as you want. So you might have 100 different local Laravel projects or 100 different WordPress local projects. So you're free to create as many databases as you want. So for example, you could create another one. You could right click in this empty area, click Create Schema, give it a name of, Please Delete Me. Click Apply, Apply, Close. You get the idea. I just wanted to show you that so you know that you're not limited to just one database on your local system. You can have as many as you need. The idea, though, is that we're going to give Laravel access to this brand new empty database that we named Our Laravel App. If you click this icon to expand it, you can see there's going to be tables in future lessons. We'll have one table for all of the user accounts. We'll have one table for all of the blog posts. We'll have one table to keep track of which users follow other users, so on and so forth. Cool. Now before we close this lesson, I do want to show you how to connect to the database server from the command line. Because yes, you can use the Workbench program like we just did, but there are many different ways to connect to a database server. In fact, in our very next lesson, we're going to use a PHP application like Laravel to connect to the database server, just like we're doing with Workbench right now. So right now, I want to show you how to connect to the database server from your terminal or command line. The reason I want you to be aware of how to do this is because on the internet, a lot of tutorials are going to show you how to do MySQL commands from the command line. In other words, if you're doing your own independent research, your own extra credit, you want to learn about MySQL, a lot of the free tutorials and guides on the internet are going to instruct you to do things from the command line. So it's just good to be aware of this option of how to connect to the database server. So where do we get started? Well, first of all, we want to make sure that we have access to the MySQL command from the command line. So currently, if I say MySQL --version, that doesn't work. So what we need to do is we need to give our command line access to the MySQL command. And luckily, it's very simple to do that on a Mac. So here's what we do. In the command line, run this command with me. Echo, and then a single quote, export all uppercase path equals an opening double quote, slash, and that's a /, just a regular slash, usr/local/mysql/bin : $uppercase path, and then close out the double quote, also close out the single quote, and then a space, 2 greater than symbols, and then a space, and then a tilde. So that's, you hold down shift and press the key above the tab key. After the tilde, a slash dot ZSHRC. If you need to pause the video to type this in with me, that's okay, but then just go ahead and press enter. Cool, now let's test it out. So if you try to run the MySQL command and say, -- version, whoops, I should have known better. That's not going to do anything for this current session of the terminal or command line, but if you close and quit this terminal and then relaunch a fresh terminal program, right? And now if I say MySQL -- version, awesome. So that command successfully added and permanently added MySQL to our path. So now we can actually use the MySQL command. At this point, let's actually use MySQL to connect to the database server. So I'm actually going to clear my screen just so it's easier to follow along. I want you to type this in with me. So it's MySQL and then -u. That's telling it we want to log in with the user that's named root. So -u for user, the username is root, and then -p to say that we want to authenticate with a password. So go ahead and push enter. It's going to ask for your password. So remember, I made up a password of root. Go ahead and enter your password. Cool. And now we are in the MySQL command prompt. So we can start running MySQL commands. You could say, for example, show databases, and you need to end that with a semicolon, but you can press enter. There we see our Laravel app, please delete me. Just for fun, let's add another database from the command lines. You could say, create database, and then just say super quick test, and then end it with a semicolon. Awesome. Now you could say show databases semicolon, and there you see it. Super quick test alongside please delete me and our Laravel app. To really make sure that you added that database, even though you don't need to, this is just for fun or for testing, you could go back into Workbench and click this refresh icon. Awesome. There you see it. Cool. So you don't need to have all these extra databases. I just wanted you to be aware that you can have as many on your system as you need to. Big picture, we just want this one. There's nothing special about this name, but this is the empty database, right? Our Laravel app that we're going to give Laravel access to in our very next lesson. Trust me, this is going to be a lot of fun because once Laravel has access to a database, this is where things get truly powerful and truly real world. We can start to let users sign up for an account and actually let them begin doing things in our application. I'm so excited to jump into that with you, so let's keep our momentum rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson. Really quick at the end here, I forgot to mention that to exit the MySQL command prompt, you can just run the command of exit, and there you go. You're back to your Mac default shell. Cool. I'll see you in the next lesson.